Good morning and happy 2026, everybody. My name's Nicole Charcoti, and welcome to the first episode of this year's When Justice Goes AWOL. I first want to start off by apologizing. I think I'm coming down with a little bit of a cold or something, and my voice is a little bit huskier and raspier than usual. So bear with me, and I'll do my best to bring you the most latest news on military crime. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about reoffending and the statistics here in Washington state, but also the military justice system and something called separation from administration. This is basically where you can resign in lieu of court-martial sentencing. The thing about that is you separate from the military, but little to no time there is no public record of any offenses that you might have committed, and really all you need to do is admit that you offended, but you don't need to admit to what charges they were. It's a practice in the Army that increasingly allows offenders to resign rather than face court-martial. The only thing that this really does is it increasingly allows predators to be released back into the community, and nobody knows what they have done in the past. So there's little to no repercussions for these offenders, and commanders aren't even required to explain their reasoning for allowing these guys to resign in lieu of court-martial. The Army has been increasingly resistant to modifying or changing this practice because it's been in effect for over 50 years. Today we're going to be talking about just a few cases where this practice was put into effect, and we're going to be looking at a comparison of a drug-related offense and SA-related offenses and how those two cases were treated very differently by Army administration. So we got two offenders in the military, and offenders I use for one of those very loosely. Christian G. Alvarado, he's got 9 counts of SA charges against 5 different women. He's also got 1 count of strangulation against him and 2 counts of making a false official statement. He also fired off an AR-15 in front of his girlfriend's house, and as a result was reprimanded by the military. He was finally placed in pretrial confinement after a 4th and 5th woman accused him of SA. Not the first through 3rd time, oddly. Alvarado can appeal his sentence of 18 years automatically through the Military Court of Appeals. But what about the other offender in the military? And then you have Private Olivia Ochoa, and her grievances include 3 counts of drug possession, 7 counts of disrespecting or disobeying an officer, and 1 count of failure to obey an order. And in any of those charges, I did not hear the words strangulation, SA, or making false official statements to that degree. So she was also found with having a messy room, which they better not come to my house or I'd get the chair. Not having enough water in her bottle. And I don't get enough hydration as it is, so they'd probably dock me on that too. Being late. I can't think of a single one of us who has never not been late at least once in their lives. And then drinking. More than half the population consumes alcohol. But more than half the population, I presume, does not assault other people just because it gratifies them. They finally put her in pretrial confinement for refusing orders, and a magistrate actually reversed that order, saying that she did not do that, and commanders immediately put her back in pretrial confinement. You can argue that this was a case of them preferring him as a person, like putting up with his behavior because they actually liked him. And they made her life that much harder, and she never assaulted anybody. Which brings me to offender statistics that I've pulled up from the previous year. I pulled up previous year's crime stats from the Washington Association of Sheriff and Police Chiefs, and the statistics are just for the general population, not necessarily military involved. Their statistics show that there's a crime against persons, men and women, roughly around every 5 minutes, which not a good start. Forcible SA offenses, roughly every 3.5 hours, which I don't know why you need to include the word forcible because it is an SA offense. Force is always involved. Control is always involved. Perpetrators exploiting their victims is always involved. This excludes grape, because grape happens roughly every 3 hours. Just so we all know how effective a piece of paper is at keeping someone away who's either harassing, stalking, or threatening you, or a DV situation, A no contact or protection violation order happens every 26.7 minutes. That doesn't protect anybody, that just increases your number of statistics. The only time paper can really win is when it's against rock. I've looked at so many crimes in the military where more could have been done to protect present and future people that have been involved in these crimes, whether they were perpetrator, judges, commander. The system is openly affording more opportunities or abilities to appeal their convictions based on whether or not they've served in the military. The previous case of David Tippins, who was out on bond awaiting charges where he was found openly gratifying himself to a child rape video on loop since he was arrested for using a website called Playpen, a CP website where they traded images, videos with other offenders. But since the government couldn't reveal their network investigative techniques and would not at trial, he only got 6 months because his privacy was violated. Joint Base Lewis McCord had another soldier for around the same crimes as Jonathan Lee. They had another soldier who was guilty of the same crimes who went AWOL, same circumstances. He was in no form of pretrial confinement. They had to apprehend his ass in Wyoming. So why do we keep pushing these inefficient and negligent leaders through? And judges, the people we appoint to thoroughly punish these criminals, are giving them a slap on the wrist even before they're due in court. Nicholas Hargrave was a former soldier at JBLM who went into a Dollar Tree and relieved but not urinate himself on a small child. A legal advocate on behalf of their family begged the judge to set no bail, that he was dangerous, that this was somebody with no remorse and a predator. She set bail at $100,000 and he posted $10,000 with no collateral and was free to go, awaiting his sentence. Well, surprise, surprise, he didn't stick around, and he actually ended up being apprehended back in Texas on CP-related charges, and he's serving out his sentence there before he will be presumably returned to Washington and prosecuted for his crimes here. We are letting them play checkers across the United States, and we can't pin them down with any offenses and the documentation that shows that this is a dangerous person. We are in the middle of an offender crisis. We are affording more liberties to men and women who assault children, who use them for their own personal gratification and to exploit, than we are children in ICE detention centers. I kind of want to start treating them like the people we throw in there. Give them nothing but Mylar blankets to huddle up with other guys and try to keep warm with. Feed them the bare amount of food that's required just to keep them sustained. Make them grow their own food in the middle of the desert. Death Valley is a good start. I have no sympathy for people who make these guys' lives easier and create nothing but hurt and strain on the families who continue to suffer for what they did. We are supposed to protect children. I may not have any kids of my own, but I will never stop fighting. When these crimes happen and people are throwing their hands up wondering why, I will be there to tell them why. Because they are letting it happen. They are letting these guys go. They have no track record. Separation from administration. There's nothing that follows you that says this is somebody you have to stay away from, be aware of. Why aren't the punishments harsher? We don't have the space. We don't have the resources to lock all these people up. Why don't we stop arresting people for minor drug crimes then? Drug crimes are still significantly held in pretrial confinement way more than they are sex crimes. And that needs to change. You have a woman who is clearly dealing with addiction issues and struggling with trying to fit into a system who never wanted her in the first place, just what she could provide. And when she couldn't provide it, they made her life a living hell and afforded every opportunity to a guy who hurt others, who hurt other women. And if you look at this pie chart, the number of victims, the percentage of victims of women versus men, it's still a lot higher. I have pride in our armed forces who join for the right reasons, who want to be a part of something bigger, who want to get stronger and protect their families and their communities. And the community is made up of other families. Those are the people that we should be protecting. But for some reason, image has become everything. We put image over the actual results, and that makes us appear stronger than we actually are, when really we're rotting from the inside. We are rotting from the inside by letting them get away with these crimes, by not holding these judges, administration, commanders, all of them accountable. We're letting it happen. Predators continue to exist, and we're justifying why they should. Everyone has rights, even that kid who they assaulted, who they videotaped, who now has their face all over the world because of a CP network that their images and videos were shared with. What about that kid? Do they deserve justice? Or are they young enough where they probably won't remember it? They were acting promiscuous. Those are the kind of excuses people come up with. Which brings me to my next episode. Next week, we're looking at a military museum in Oregon, which has recently come under fire because of one of the ways one of their minor volunteers was treated by the now former director. Stay safe, stay aware, stay informed. And I'll see you guys then. Take care.